It was 3 a.m. A loud knock on the door broke the silence like thunder in the calm. My daughter stood there, crying, bruised, broken in spirit. "Dad, my husband hit me. Because of his mistress," she whispered. I silently put on my old uniform, feeling anger overcome years of calm. One call in the night. The plan begins. Now. Betrayal will receive its just punishment. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. The pounding tore through my sleep like a freight train. I sat up, disoriented. The red digits on my alarm clock glowed 3:15 a.m. Another round of fists hammered against wood downstairs. Not the doorbell. Someone was hitting my front door with their bare hands. My chest tightened as I swung my legs over the side of the bed. The hardwood floor felt cold against my bare feet. 35 years as a Chicago detective had taught me that nothing good happened at 3 in the morning. The pounding continued, desperate and unrelenting. I grabbed my robe from the chair and moved toward the stairs. Each step creaked under my weight. My hand found the banister, gripping the smooth wood as I descended. The sound grew louder with every step. Whoever was out there wasn't stopping. At the bottom of the stairs, I flipped the foyer light switch. Harsh brightness flooded the entryway. My fingers fumbled with the deadbolt, then the chain lock. The pounding stopped the moment I touched the door handle. I pulled the door open. Christine stood on my porch, backlit by the street lamp behind her. For a split second, she was just a silhouette. Then she stumbled forward into the light, and my world stopped. Her left eye was swollen shut, a grotesque purple-black that spread from her eyebrow to her cheekbone. Blood had dried at the corner of her split lip. Dark finger marks circled her throat like a terrible necklace. I could count each one. 5 distinct impressions. The shoulder of her dress was torn, hanging loose and exposing her bra strap. "Daddy?" she whispered, and collapsed into my arms. Her weight caught me off guard. I staggered back, wrapping my arms around her as she sobbed into my chest. She smelled wrong. Not her usual vanilla perfume. Something sharper. Fear has a scent, and I'd learned to recognize it decades ago. My husband hit me. Her voice came out hoarse, broken, because of his mistress. The words ignited something in my chest. Blood roared in my ears. My vision narrowed to a tunnel. Every case I'd ever worked, every victim I'd ever interviewed, every wife I'd seen broken and bleeding flashed through my mind in an instant. But this wasn't just another case. This was Christine. I tightened my grip on her shoulders and guided her toward the kitchen. She could barely walk. Each step seemed to hurt her. The hallway stretched longer than usual. Finally, we reached the kitchen doorway. I pulled out a chair from the old wooden table and eased her into it. She winced as she sat. The overhead light was too bright. I could see everything now. Every bruise, every mark, every sign of what that man had done to my daughter. "Don't move," I said, keeping my voice steady. Years of training helped me sound calmer than I felt. I crossed to the freezer and pulled out ice, wrapping it in a dish towel. My hands shook as I tied the corners. Water from the melting ice dripped onto the counter. I grabbed a glass, filled it from the tap, and brought both back to the table. Christine flinched when I pressed the ice gently against her swollen eye. Her good eye looked up at me, filled with shame and pain and something else. Defeat. "Drink," I instructed, placing the glass in her trembling hand. She took a small sip, then another. I pulled my phone from my robe pocket and turned on the camera. The flash lit up the dim kitchen like lightning. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Documenting." I took photos from multiple angles. Her face, her throat, the torn dress. "We'll need these." She didn't protest, just sat there holding the ice pack, letting me work. "Tell me what happened," I said, sitting down across from her. Her story came in fragments. She'd found a hairpin under their bed. Not hers. When she confronted Titus, he'd exploded. Told her she was worthless. That Diane was younger, prettier, better. That Christine should be grateful he stayed with her at all. "He grabbed me by the throat," she whispered. "Shoved me against the wall. Said if I had a problem with it, I could leave." "So you came here," she nodded. "He's with her right now, in our house, in our bed." I stood up. My chair scraped against the floor. The sound seemed too loud in the quiet kitchen. Christine watched me, her good eye following my movements. "What are you thinking?" I looked at my daughter. really looked at her, the girl who used to dance on my feet in the living room, the teenager who'd rolled her eyes at my overprotective rules, the bride in white who'd asked me on her wedding day if her husband really loved her. I'd seen the signs, even then. "I'm thinking," I said slowly, "that this ends now." I moved toward the garage door, but stopped. My hand rested on the doorknob. Behind me, Christine's breathing was ragged and uneven. Her wedding day flickered in my mind. The signature room, 95 floors above Chicago. She'd looked so beautiful in that white dress, asking me that question as we danced. Christine's hands trembled around the water glass. I'd seen those hands before, steady and confident, holding a bouquet of white roses. Her wedding day, 8 years ago. How had we ended up here? The kitchen felt too small suddenly. I sat back down heavily in the chair, and the motion pulled me backward through time. June 14th, 2014. The signature room stretched before us, all glass and elegance on the 95th floor of the John Hancock Center. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed Lake Michigan, and the setting sun painted the water in streaks of orange and purple. 100 guests filled the space with laughter and champagne toasts. Christine had looked radiant in her wedding dress, all lace and silk, her dark hair swept up in an elegant twist. I'd watched her float through the room, smiling at guests, accepting congratulations. Titus stayed close to her side, his hand always on her elbow or the small of her back. At the time, I'd thought it was devotion. Now I knew better. It was possession. The reception had started smoothly enough. Titus worked the room like a politician, shaking hands and making charming conversation. He looked good in his expensive suit, confident and successful. The perfect son-in-law. Everyone said so. But there were moments, small things that nagged at me even then, though I'd pushed them aside. Christine had stood to give a thank-you speech. She'd barely started when Titus interrupted her. "Honey, that's not quite how we met." "Let me tell it." He took the microphone from her hand. She'd smiled, but the light in her eyes had dimmed. Later, at the head table, I'd watched him order her meal without asking what she wanted. "She'll have the salmon. She needs to watch her figure." Christine had laughed it off, but her cheeks had flushed red. During the toast, she'd tried to tell a joke about their first date. Titus had talked over the punchline, telling his version instead. The guests had laughed at his story. Nobody noticed how Christine's smile had frozen on her face. I'd noticed the way his hand gripped her wrist under the table. Noticed the white pressure marks when he finally let go. Noticed how she'd rubbed the spot absently while smiling at a guest's comment. "He's just nervous," I'd told myself. Wedding jitters. But then came the father-daughter dance. The DJ had played Unforgettable, and the lights had dimmed. A spotlight followed us to the center of the dance floor. Christine's hand rested on my shoulder. My hand found the small of her back, where her dress was open, and we began to sway. Behind us, the Chicago skyline glittered like scattered diamonds. Around us, guests watched with champagne glasses raised. Everything looked perfect. "Daddy," she'd whispered, leaning close to my ear, "do you think he really loves me? Sometimes he's so controlling." My heart had skipped. This was it. The moment. She was asking me to tell her the truth, to give her permission to doubt, to help her escape. And what had I said? "It's just pre-wedding nerves, sweetheart. Every man gets anxious." Her face had searched mine, looking for something more. Some sign that I saw what she saw, that I understood her fear. But I'd smiled reassuringly. "You're married now. Give it time. He'll settle down." She'd wanted to believe me. I could see it in her eyes. The desperate hope that everything would be fine, that love would conquer all, that the doubts whispering in her mind were wrong. The song had ended. Applause filled the room. Other couples joined us on the dance floor, and the music shifted to something upbeat. Titus had immediately cut in, pulling Christine away from me with barely a thank you. I'd watched them dance, watched how his grip on her waist looked a little too tight, how she kept glancing at him nervously as if checking for approval. The night had wound down around 10:30, still early for a wedding reception. Guests were laughing, dancing, enjoying the open bar, but Titus had suddenly appeared at Christine's side, speaking urgently in her ear. "We need to go. Now." Christine had looked confused. "But I haven't said goodbye to everyone." "Early flight tomorrow for the honeymoon. We discussed this." His hand had closed around her elbow, firm and insistent, I'd approached them. "Everything okay?" Titus had flashed that charming smile. "All good, sir, just trying to stick to schedule. You know how it is." But there was no early flight. I'd found that out later. They weren't leaving for Hawaii until the following week. Christine had looked back at her guests, at me, uncertainty written across her face. Then Titus had steered her toward the exit, his hand never leaving her arm. I'd watched them disappear through the door. She'd glanced over her shoulder one last time. Her expression had been impossible to read. Confusion, fear, hope that I'd call out and stop them. But I'd just turned back to the remaining guests, accepting congratulations, ignoring the sick feeling in my stomach. "I should have known," I said aloud, and the kitchen snapped back into focus around me. Christine lowered the ice pack from her face. "What?" "Your wedding day. You asked me if he loved you. You told me he was controlling." My voice came out rough. "And I told you it was normal." Her good eye filled with tears. "Dad, I knew. Deep down, I always knew something was wrong. But I wanted so badly to believe in the fairy tale. I should have listened to my instincts. Should have stopped it then. I wouldn't have listened." She reached across the table, her fingers finding mine. I ignored my own instincts too. We both wanted the happy ending. The shared guilt hung between us, heavy and undeniable. Two people who'd seen the warning signs and chosen to look away. But looking away was over. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. The sound echoed in the quiet kitchen. Christine watched me with her battered face, and I saw both the bride in white and the broken woman in front of me. "The wedding was just the beginning," I said. "You tried to tell me after that too, didn't you?" She nodded slowly. "So many times." Christine rubbed her wrist absently, an unconscious gesture. I'd seen her do it before. 3 years into her marriage, sitting across from me in a coffee shop. Same motion. Same excuse when I'd asked about it. I should have pushed harder. The kitchen clock showed 4:05 a.m. Outside the window, the street remained dark and empty. Inside, memories cascaded through my mind like dominoes falling. 4 years, 4 conversations, 4 chances I'd let slip away. April 2015, 11 months after that perfect wedding. The Wormhole Coffee in Wrigleyville had become our meeting spot. Small place, all exposed brick walls and vintage arcade games, smelling perpetually of dark roast espresso. We'd sit in the corner booth by the window, watching the afternoon traffic pass outside. Christine had arrived right after school let out, still carrying papers to grade. She'd looked different somehow, thinner. Her clothes hung loose on her frame, and she'd chosen a high-neck sweater, despite the spring warmth. "How's married life?" I'd asked, pushing a latte across the table to her. She'd wrapped her hands around the cup, but didn't drink. "Good. Really good." But her eyes hadn't met mine when she said it. We'd talked about safe things, her teaching job, the 8th graders giving her trouble, my adjustment to retirement. The conversation had drifted comfortably until she'd mentioned her college friends. "Titus thinks I should spend less time with them," she'd said, still not looking at me. "He cares about me, Dad. Says they're bad influences." Something in my chest had tightened. "That's not caring, Christine. That's control. He knows them better than I do." Her voice had taken on a defensive edge. He sees things I don't notice. "Isolation is a classic tactic," I'd started, but she'd cut me off. "You're being overprotective. I'm not a case from your detective days." Her phone had buzzed on the table. Once, twice, 3 times. She'd checked it each time, her shoulders tensing with every notification. "I should go," she'd said abruptly, gathering her things. "Errands to run." I'd watched her hurry out, barely touching her coffee. Through the window, I'd seen her checking her phone again as she walked away. "She's an adult," I'd told myself. "She needs to make her own choices." But I'd known better. I'd seen this pattern hundreds of times. October 2016. Baby Alex was 3 months old. Christine had rushed into the Wormhole Coffee 15 minutes late, apologizing immediately. Sorry. The sitter was late, and I had to—" She'd stopped mid-sentence, looking exhausted. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her clothes were unflattering, deliberately so. A baggy sweatshirt and loose jeans that hid her post-pregnancy body. "Tell me about my grandson," I'd said, trying to lighten the mood. Her face had brightened briefly. She'd talked about Alex's first smile, his sleep schedule, the tiny fingers that gripped her hand. But underneath the proud mother talk, something else had seeped through. Titus says I'm feeding him wrong, that the clothes I buy are too cheap, that my body... She'd trailed off, shame coloring her cheeks. What about your body? Nothing. Just, he wants me to lose the baby weight faster. Says other mothers at his company look better than I do. Rage had flared hot in my chest. What kind of man says that to his wife? He wants me to take care of myself, she'd defended quickly. To be my best. Her phone had vibrated on the table. She'd jumped like she'd been shocked, snatching it up immediately. Hey, honey, she'd said into the phone, her voice shifting to something apologetic. Yes, I'm with Dad. No, just coffee. I'll be home soon to start dinner. She'd hung up and stood. I need to go. Christine, wait. But she'd already been gathering her purse, her half-finished coffee abandoned on the table. The door had swung shut behind her, leaving me alone in the booth. I'd sat there for another hour, turning that flinch over in my mind, the way she'd reacted to her own phone, the fear I'd seen flash across her face, but I hadn't acted, hadn't pushed, hadn't demanded answers. July 2017. Alex was almost a year old. Christine had brought him with her to the coffee shop, unusual since Titus's mother usually watched him. The toddler had sat in the corner of the booth, playing silently with a toy car, too quiet for a baby his age. We'd been talking about nothing important when Christine had reached for a napkin. Her sleeve had slid up her arm. The bruise was unmistakable, dark purple, almost black, in the clear shape of finger marks. What happened to your arm? I'd asked, my voice sharp. Panic had crossed her face. She'd yanked the sleeve down fast. I'm so clumsy lately, always bumping into things. Christine! I'd leaned forward, keeping my voice low so Alex wouldn't hear. If he hit you, I will... No! The word had come out too loud. She'd glanced at Alex, then lowered her voice. Titus would never do that. He just yells sometimes. But who doesn't yell? The lie had hung in the air between us, obvious and terrible. If you need help, I'd started. I don't. She'd stood up, gathering Alex quickly. Everything's fine. Please don't make it into something it isn't. Alex had looked up at me with wide, solemn eyes. Too serious for a child. Too aware. They'd left within minutes, Christine moving fast, not looking back. Through the window, I'd watched her strap Alex into his car seat, her movements jerky and nervous. I'd sat there holding my cold coffee, staring at the empty booth where my daughter had just lied to my face, and I'd let her. The Bruise, I said now, sitting at my kitchen table at 4:20 in the morning. That was him, wasn't it? Christine nodded, not meeting my eyes. I let you convince me otherwise? My hands clenched into fists on the table. I knew the truth, but I let you deny it. January 2018. Baby Lily was 1 month old. Alex was 2. The last time we'd met at the wormhole, winter had made the cafe feel warm and inviting against the cold outside. Christine had arrived alone, her mother-in-law watching both kids. She'd looked years older than 33. Gray strands had appeared in her hair. Her hands had shaken when she'd lifted her coffee cup. Titus has a lot of business meetings lately, she'd said, her voice flat. Comes home very late. Does he help with the kids? A bitter laugh. He says childcare is my job. I'm home for summer break anyway. Christine! I haven't been out without the children in months. Her voice had cracked. Tears had pooled in her eyes. The money's tight, but somehow he always has cash for his business dinners and... She'd stopped, opened her mouth like she was about to say everything, about to finally tell me the whole truth. Then she'd closed it again, swallowed hard. I'm just tired. New baby. You know how it is. Leave him, I'd said bluntly. Come stay with me. You and the kids. I can't. She'd shaken her head. The children need their father. What would people think? I don't care what people think. Please, Dad. Her voice had broken completely. Don't make this harder. We'd walked out together into the bitter cold. At her car, she'd paused. I should have listened to you, she'd said quietly. About all of it. It's not too late. Maybe next time. There hadn't been a next time. Not until tonight. Back in my kitchen, 4:25 a.m., glowing on the microwave clock, I saw the pattern clearly. The classic progression I'd witnessed countless times as a detective. Isolation, criticism, violence, despair. You tried to warn me, Christine said softly, understanding where my mind had gone. I should have done more than warn. I wouldn't have listened. She touched my hand across the table. I had to hit bottom. Well? I looked at her battered face in my kitchen at 4 in the morning. This is bottom. She nodded, something like relief crossing her features. Yes, it is. I stood up, my chair scraping loud in the quiet house. No more guilt. No more looking backward. No more waiting for her to be ready. One more thing I need to tell you, Christine said. Last summer, I found text messages between Titus and Diane. They've been seeing each other for... Christine's phone lay face down on the table. Screen dark. I stared at it, and suddenly I was somewhere else. Another phone. Another summer afternoon. Photos that proved what we both suspected, but she'd refused to accept. July last year, I said quietly. You showed me pictures. Her hand moved to the phone, protective. Montrose Beach, I remember. The memory pulled me in like a riptide. It had been brutally hot that Saturday afternoon, the kind of Chicago summer day where the air shimmered above the pavement and Lake Michigan looked like salvation. I'd met Christine at Montrose Beach around 3 o'clock, the lakefront packed with families seeking relief from the heat. She'd been waiting by the concrete path, wearing oversized sunglasses that hid half her face. Even from a distance, I'd seen the tension in her shoulders, the way she kept looking around like someone might be watching. We'd walked along the shore, volleyball games erupting to our left, children shrieking in the waves to our right. Normal summer chaos. But Christine walked like she was being followed. You okay? I'd asked. Can we sit somewhere away from people? We'd found a spot on the concrete wall overlooking the beach, far enough from the crowds for privacy. She'd kept the sunglasses on. Her hands had trembled as she'd pulled out her phone. I need to show you something. Her voice had been barely audible over the lake wind. But you have to promise. Promise you won't do anything. That promise had been a mistake. I'd known it even then. What is it? I know Titus is... She'd stopped, swallowed hard. There's someone else. The suspicion hadn't surprised me. After years of watching him pull away, control her, diminish her, an affair seemed inevitable. But seeing her pain made my chest tighten. Show me. She'd unlocked her phone with shaking fingers and pulled up photos. The first showed Titus standing by his car with a woman I didn't recognize. Younger than Christine, dark hair, dressed professionally, too close. His hand on her lower back in a way that wasn't casual. Who is she? I don't know her name, not yet. Christine had swiped to the next photo. Same woman, different day, different location. Titus laughing at something she'd said, his face more animated than I'd seen it in years. I hired someone, a private detective, just for 2 weeks. Another swipe. The woman and Titus entering a restaurant together, then leaving a hotel, then sitting in his car, her hand on his thigh. Christine! The perfume, she'd interrupted, her voice cracking. I kept finding these bottles in his car. Not my brand. And lipstick marks on his collar. Wrong shade. He changed all his passwords. Won't let his phone out of his sight. She looked at me then, sunglasses finally off, eyes desperate. I'm not crazy, right? These photos. I'm not imagining this. You're not crazy. Fury had burned through me, hot and immediate. Your instincts are correct. Let me find out who she is. I can... No! The word had come out sharp, panicked. She'd grabbed my arm. He found the credit card charge. For the detective. He screamed for 3 hours, Dad. Called me paranoid, controlling, jealous. Said I was destroying our family with my suspicions. Tears had started streaming down her face. If he finds out I showed you these, if you start investigating, what will he do? She hadn't answered. The silence had been answer enough. I'd looked out at the lake, watching boats cut white lines through blue water. Let me use my contacts, quietly. I can find out everything. Her name, where she works, how long this has been going on. What if I'm wrong? Her voice had been small, childlike. What if it's innocent? Christine! I turned to face her fully. Look at these photos. There's nothing innocent here. But she'd shaken her head, already pulling back. Maybe I'm not. Maybe if I were a better wife, my body after the kids, I'm tired all the time. I'm not... Stop. The word had come out harder than intended. Don't you dare blame yourself for his choices. You're an excellent wife and mother. His betrayal is about him, not you. She'd cried then, really cried, her shoulders shaking. Around us, families had played and laughed, completely unaware of the marriage disintegrating on the concrete wall. "What did the kids say?" I'd ask gently. "They don't know. Can't know." She'd wiped her eyes roughly. "What would I tell them? Your father loves someone else? You can't protect them from this forever. I just need time. Time to figure out what to do." "How much time? Until what?" No answer, just her staring at the lake, at the horizon where water met sky, like the answer might be written there somewhere. We'd walked back to the parking lot in silence. Before she'd gotten in her car, she'd turned to me. "Promise you won't investigate, please." And like a fool, I'd promised. "I should have listened to you," I'd said. "About all of it." She'd smiled sadly. "Maybe next time." There hadn't been a next time. Not until tonight. Now, sitting at my kitchen table at 4:40 in the morning, Christine's voice pulled me back to the present. "Diane Rossi." She said the name like it tasted bitter. "That's her. The woman in the photos. She works with him. Has for 3 years." 3 years. The affair had been going on for at least that long, maybe longer. "I should have acted then," I said, my voice rough. "Should have ignored your request and exposed him anyway. You were respecting my choices. Your choices were made under duress, under his control." I stood up, the chair scraping loud against the floor. "No more. Tell me what happened tonight, from the beginning. Every detail." She took a breath, wrapped her hands tighter around the water glass. Christine wrapped both hands around the water glass, took a breath that shuddered in her chest. When she spoke, her voice sounded flat, distant, like she was describing events that had happened to someone else. "I left school at 2 o'clock today. Wanted to get home early. I pulled a notepad from the kitchen drawer, found a pen. 35 years as a detective had taught me to document everything. I wrote the date at the top, August 22nd, 2022. Then the time, 2 p.m. "Why early?" I asked gently. Thought maybe, if I made his favorite dinner, if I tried harder. She stopped, looked down. "Stupid, right?" "Not stupid. Hopeful." I kept my voice neutral, professional. "What happened next?" "Stopped at the store, bought ingredients for pot roast, his favorite wine." Her fingers traced the rim of the glass. "Got home around 3. His car was in the driveway, which was weird. He never comes home early." I wrote, 3 p.m. Arrives home. Subject's vehicle present. The house was quiet. I thought he was working from home, didn't want to disturb him. Went upstairs to change out of my work clothes before starting dinner." She paused. I waited, pen hovering over paper. "Our bedroom door was closed. It's never closed during the day?" "Never." Her voice got quieter. I opened it. The pen in my hand stopped moving. "They were there, in our bed, on the sheets I'd washed that morning." Her words came faster now, like she needed to get them out. "I screamed, just screamed. Couldn't help it." "What did he do?" "Jumped up, but he wasn't embarrassed, Dad. Wasn't sorry. He was angry. At me." She laughed, a broken sound. "Started yelling. 'What are you doing home?' Like I was the one who shouldn't be there." I wrote it down, my handwriting getting shakier. "And her?" I forced the question out. "Diane." Christine's voice turned cold. She laughed, actually laughed, said I was pathetic, that I should have seen this coming. She met my eyes, said she was younger, prettier, better in bed. That Titus had been complaining about me for years. The pen snapped in my hand. I looked down, surprised to see ink bleeding across my palm. Hadn't even felt it break. "How long?" I managed. 2 years, he said. 2 years she's been everything I'm not. Christine's voice cracked. I asked him how he could do this. In our bed. In our home. He said it was his house now. That I should be grateful he'd stayed as long as he did. I grabbed another pen, kept writing. Had to keep documenting. Had to stay professional. I told him I wanted him out. That I'd had enough. She swallowed hard. That's when he pushed me. My hand froze on the page. Hard. I hit the dresser corner. Right here. She touched her side, winced. Fell. Things crashed down around me. Framed photos, jewelry box, everything breaking. Did you hit your head? No. But before I could get up, he was there. Grabbed my throat. I looked at the bruises on her neck. 5 distinct finger marks. His hands had been around my daughter's throat. Couldn't breathe, she whispered. He was screaming in my face, calling me worthless. Pathetic. Said Diane gave him what I never could. That I was lucky he'd wasted 8 years on me. How long did he choke you? I don't know. 10 seconds? 20? Felt like forever. Her hand moved to her throat, touched the bruises. Then he threw me toward the door, told me to get out, that it was his house now. I wrote it all down, forcing my hand to stay steady. Assault, battery, strangulation, domestic violence. Enough for an arrest. More than enough. What did you do? Grabbed my purse, my keys, my phone, got down the stairs somehow. Her voice broke completely now. Diane was laughing from the bedroom. I could hear them both laughing as I ran out. Where were the kids? His mother's. Sleepover. Thank heaven they weren't there. Small mercy. At least Alex and Lily hadn't witnessed their father trying to strangle their mother. Where did you go? I drove. Just drove. Couldn't think. Couldn't process. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Sat in a grocery store parking lot for hours. Looked at my face in the mirror. Saw what he'd done. Knew I couldn't go back. Why didn't you call me sooner? Shame. Fear. I don't know. Her shoulders shook. Finally, around 3 this morning, I realized I had nowhere else to go. Came here. I looked at the clock. 5:15 a.m. 14 hours since it had happened. 14 hours of her suffering alone while that man celebrated his freedom with his mistress. I'm sorry, Dad. Christine's voice was barely a whisper. You warned me. Years ago. At the wedding. After. Every time we met. And I didn't listen. I stood up from the table. Put down the pen. Looked at my daughter. Bruised. Broken. Apologizing for someone else's violence. No more apologies. My voice came out steady. Cold. You're safe now. And he's going to answer for this. What are you going to do? I walked toward the garage. Toward the old cabinet where I'd kept my uniform. 35 years I'd carried a badge. Sworn to protect. Served the law. Now the law would serve my daughter. I'm going to do what I should have done years ago. I opened the garage door. I'm going to restore justice. The cabinet stood in the corner, wooden and weathered. I opened it slowly. There it was, my dress uniform, perfectly preserved. Dark blue fabric, brass buttons, the badge still polished despite years of storage. I pulled it out, felt the weight of it in my hands, held it up to the dim garage light. In the reflection of the window, I saw myself. Gray hair, older face, lines carved by time and regret. But the same eyes, the same oath. I put on the shirt first, buttoned it carefully, then the pants, the belt. The uniform fit tighter in the shoulders than it used to, but it fit. The badge went on last, clipped to my chest, still heavy, still meaningful. I looked at myself in the window reflection again. Not just a father anymore. Officer Sims. When I walked back into the kitchen, Christine looked up, saw the uniform. Something shifted in her expression. Not fear, relief. You look like yourself again, she whispered. I am myself. I helped her up from the chair. You need to rest. I'll handle everything from here. But sleep, Christine. When you wake up, this will be over. I guided her to the living room couch, found a blanket in the closet, tucked it around her. Her eyes were already closing, exhaustion finally claiming her. You're safe, I said softly, my hand on her head for just a moment. I promise. She was asleep before I left the room. I walked to my study, closed the door quietly behind me. When I walked back from the garage, Christine was still at the table. She looked up, saw the uniform, and something changed in her eyes. Recognition, like she'd finally remembered who her father really was. You still have it, she said quietly. Never got rid of it. I touched the badge on my chest. Couldn't. What happens now? Now you rest. I handle the rest. I helped her stand, guided her to the living room couch. She moved like every muscle hurt. Probably did. I found a blanket in the hall closet, the soft blue one she'd liked as a teenager. Spread it over her, tucked the edges around her shoulders. She was already half asleep, eyes closing despite trying to stay awake. The kids, she mumbled, are safe at their grandmother's. We'll get them soon. I smoothed her hair back from her forehead. Sleep now. When you wake up, everything will be different. Her eyes closed fully. Within seconds, her breathing evened out. I watched her for a moment, my daughter, finally at peace after hours of terror. Then I turned and walked to my study, closing the door with barely a sound. The room was exactly as I'd left it when I retired. Wooden desk scarred from years of use, filing cabinets against one wall, my old district map of Chicago pinned to the corkboard, neighborhoods marked in different colors based on crime rates. The desk lamp cast a circle of yellow light when I switched it on. I sat down in the leather chair, pulled out a fresh legal pad, and wrote at the top, Domestic Violence Incident, Christine Hale, August 27, 2022. Then I started building the timeline. 2 p.m. Victim leaves workplace early. 3 p.m. Victim arrives at residence. 5247 S. Kenwood. Off. 3:15 p.m. Victim discovers husband with another woman in marital bedroom. 3:30 p.m. Physical assault occurs. Pushing, strangulation, forced removal. 3:15 a.m. Next day. Victim arrives at father's residence. 3:20 a.m. Injuries documented with photographs. 4:45 a.m. Full statement obtained. I studied what I'd written. The elements were all there. Witness testimony. Christine's account. Physical evidence. Photographs of injuries. Probable cause. Visible bruising, marks consistent with strangulation, split lip. Documentation. Time-stamped photos. Written statement. Enough for an arrest. More than enough. I pulled out my old notebook, the one with contacts I'd kept from my years on the force. Flipped through pages of names and numbers. Some crossed out, retired, moved away, passed on. Found the one I needed, Mike Donnelly, my former partner. Still active, still working domestic violence cases. If anyone would understand the urgency, Mike would. I checked the clock, 5:35 a.m. Early, very early, but this couldn't wait. I picked up the phone, dialed his number. It rang 4 times before a groggy voice answered. Hello? Mike, it's Grover. Silence. Then, Grover? What time? I know it's early. I need your help. Official help. His voice sharpened immediately, sleep disappearing. What's wrong? My daughter. Her husband assaulted her tonight. She's here with me. Jesus, is she okay? Bruised, marks on her throat, split lip, traumatized. I kept my voice level, professional. I've documented everything. Photos, statement, timeline. Grover, you know the procedure. She needs to file a report and give him time to lawyer up, time to intimidate her, time to flee. I leaned forward, pen tapping the desk. He's still at the residence right now, Mike. Probably with the other woman. This is a legitimate domestic violence call. A pause. I could hear him thinking, weighing options. What do you need? Official police response. I've got probable cause. Victim testimony. Evidence. I gave him the address. 5247 South Kenwood Avenue, Hyde Park. Subject is Titus Hale, 38. Works in logistics. Strong, physically capable. Mistress may still be present. You want us to arrest him? I want you to respond to a domestic violence call with documented injuries and witness statement. What happens after that follows protocol. Another pause, longer this time. When? Now, 6 a.m. I'll meet you 2 blocks away. I checked my map of Hyde Park. Harper Avenue near the park. Bring Rodriguez if he's on shift. You're coming? I'm the victim's father. I have a right to be present. Grover, Mike's voice carried a warning. Keep it professional. Always do. I almost smiled. 35 years, I never crossed that line. Not starting now. Give me 30 minutes. Don't do anything until we're there. Understood. This goes by the book, Mike. Every step. 30 minutes. The line went dead. I sat back in my chair, looked at the notes spread across my desk. Timeline, evidence, contact information. Everything documented, everything legal, everything right. I glanced at the map of Chicago, found Hyde Park, traced the route from here, Lincoln Park, down Lakeshore Drive. 7 miles. 15 minutes at this hour with almost no traffic. I started a new page. Questions for interrogation. Where were you on August 22nd between 4 p.m.? Who was present in the residence? Did you have physical contact with your wife? Did your wife require medical attention? Has there been prior domestic violence in this relationship? Standard questions. Building the case piece by piece. Outside the study window, the sky was changing, deep blue giving way to lighter shades. Dawn approaching. The street lamps looked pale now, unnecessary. Birds had started singing somewhere in the trees behind the house. I stood up, gathered my notes into a folder, checked my pockets, keys, wallet with my retired badge for identification, phone. Everything I needed. Walking to the living room, I looked at Christine on the couch. She'd shifted in her sleep, one hand tucked under her cheek like she used to as a child. The bruises looked darker now in the growing light. Unforgivable. I found a notepad on the coffee table. Wrote quickly. Handling the situation. Call when you wake. Dad. Left it where she'd see it. Back in the kitchen, I checked the time. 5:48 a.m. 12 minutes until I needed to leave. I looked around the kitchen one more time. The table where we'd sat for hours, the chair where she'd broken down, the counter where I'd wrapped ice for her injuries. My home, her sanctuary. Now it was time to take that safety beyond these walls. I walked to the front door, hand on the knob, took one breath, opened it to the pre-dawn darkness turning blue. My old Chevy Impala sat in the driveway, same car I'd driven for 20 years. I got in, put the key in the ignition. The engine turned over with a familiar rumble. One last look at the house. All the windows dark except the study lamp I'd left on. Christine, safe inside. Time to go to work. I set the phone down and checked my watch. 5:45. Mike would be there in 15 minutes. Time to move. Before leaving, I tried 2 more numbers from my old contact book. Had to be thorough. Patterson answered on the 4th ring, voice thick with sleep. Patterson, it's Grover Sims. I need a favor. Silence, then a sigh. Grover, what kind of favor? Domestic violence response. My daughter, her husband. Another pause. I'm 2 months from retirement. Can't risk. I understand. I did. Couldn't blame him. Forget I called. One more try. Harris picked up faster, more alert, but the answer was the same. You're retired, Grover. This could blow back on all of us. Right. Thanks anyway. I hung up and looked at the phone. 35 years of service, hundreds of cases together, and when it mattered most, only one man had answered. But Mike was enough, always had been. I grabbed my keys and wallet, checked my pockets one last time. Phone, notepad with Titus's address, photos transferred and ready. Everything I needed. One more look in the mirror. The uniform still fit, mostly. Tighter in the shoulders than it used to be, but the badge caught the light the same way it always had. Officer Sims looking back at me. Not just Christine's father. Not anymore. Walking quietly to the living room, I found her exactly as I'd left her. Deeply asleep, finally at peace. The blanket had slipped from her shoulder. I pulled it back up, tucked it around her gently. Left the note on the coffee table where she'd see it, first thing. Handling it. Call when you wake. Stay here. Dad. My hand rested on her shoulder for just a moment. It's over now, baby girl, I whispered. She didn't stir. Outside, the pre-dawn air hit cool and clean. The street was empty except for a few lights and windows. Early risers starting their day, completely unaware that justice was about to be served 7 miles south. My Chevy Impala waited in the driveway, faithful as ever. 20 years I'd driven this car. It knew the way. I backed out slowly, shifted into drive, and headed toward Lakeshore Drive. The city was just waking up. Delivery trucks rumbled past. A few shift workers headed home, faces tired in their headlights. Traffic lights stayed mostly green, the timing perfect for once. My radio stayed off, just the engine's familiar rumble and the sound of my own breathing. Lake Michigan stretched out to my right as I merged onto the drive, dark water beginning to catch the first hints of dawn. The sky was shifting from deep purple to something lighter. Pink and orange touched the horizon. Beautiful morning for this. I passed familiar landmarks. Museum campus, dark silhouettes of buildings against the lightning sky. McCormick Place, massive and silent. These streets, I'd patrolled them for decades. Knew every corner, every neighborhood, every kind of trouble that happened here. At 35th Street, I checked my watch. 5:55, right on schedule. The exit at 51st came up fast. I took it smoothly, years of muscle memory guiding the turn. 2 more blocks to Harper Avenue. The meeting point. Mike's patrol car sat under a street lamp, engine running, lights off. Another car behind it, Rodriguez's personal vehicle. I pulled up beside them and cut the engine. 6:02 by my dashboard clock. Mike got out first, in full uniform, expression serious. Rodriguez followed, younger guy, early 30s, Hispanic, sharp eyes that didn't miss much. Both of them approached my car. I stepped out. The morning air had that quality it only gets right before sunrise. Everything suspended. Waiting. Christine? Mike asked immediately. Safe. At my place? Sleeping. He nodded once, satisfied. This is Officer Rodriguez. Gestured to the younger man. Briefed him on the way over. Rodriguez extended his hand. Mr. Sims. Heard a lot about you, sir. All bad, I hope. I shook his hand. Firm grip. Good. Mostly good, actually. A slight smile, then serious again. Let's make sure justice gets done. I liked him immediately. Mike pulled out his notepad. Standard DV response. You have the victim statement? I handed him my phone with the photos pulled up. Christine's face, the bruises, the marks on her throat. Rodriguez looked over Mike's shoulder, and I watched his jaw tighten. That's extensive, Rodriguez said quietly. Strangulation marks, facial trauma, defensive injuries. Mike scrolled through. Time-stamped? 3:20 this morning. Taken at my residence immediately after she arrived. Mike looked up. Suspect name? Titus Hale, 38. My son-in-law. Rodriguez's expression shifted. Understanding now. This is personal for you. This is professional, I corrected. I'm here as the victim's father, not as a cop. Mike met my eyes. He knows that, Grover. But let's be clear. Rodriguez and I handle all contact. You observe. Agreed? Agreed. Standard procedure, Mike continued. Knock and announce. If he refuses entry, we have probable cause based on victim testimony. If he consents, we document the scene. Rodriguez nodded. What if he runs? Fenced yard, I said. Only one exit. Front door. Then he won't get far. Mike closed his notepad. Address? 5247 South Kenwood. 2-story townhouse. His BMW should be in the driveway. Might be another car. The mistress. She was present during the assault? According to Christine, yes. Found them together in the bedroom. Mike and Rodriguez exchanged glances. Witness, Rodriguez said. Potentially. Mike looked at both of us. Let's move. Grover, you follow behind. Park across the street. Stay by your vehicle unless we need you. Understood. We got back in our cars. Mike's patrol car pulled out first. No lights, no sirens. Didn't want to alert the neighborhood yet. I followed 2 car lengths behind. 2 blocks felt longer than 7 miles. The houses on Kenwood were quiet, respectable. Families sleeping, kids safe in their beds, completely unaware. A dog barked somewhere. Birds were starting their morning songs. Normal life about to be interrupted. There. 5247. 2-story brick townhouse. Peaked roof. Small front yard. Titus's black BMW sat in the driveway, expensive and sleek. Next to it, a smaller sedan. Silver Honda. Diane's, most likely. Mike's patrol car slid smoothly to the curb directly in front. I parked across the street at an angle. Clear view of the front door. All 3 of us got out simultaneously. An upstairs window showed light. Bedroom. They were awake, or had never gone to sleep. Rodriguez adjusted his radio. Mike's hand rested near his weapon. Standard position, nothing aggressive yet. Just ready. They crossed the street. I stayed by my car, exactly as promised. Watched them walk up the driveway, past the BMW, past the Honda, up the 3 steps to the front porch. The sun was breaking over the horizon now, golden light spreading across the quiet street. Beautiful morning. Perfect timing. Mike raised his fist to knock. Mike's fist hit the door 3 times. Solid. Authoritative. The sound echoed down the quiet street, and I saw curtains twitch in a neighbor's window. 10 seconds passed. Nothing. Mike knocked again, harder this time. Chicago police! Open the door! I watched the upstairs window. Movement behind the curtain. Someone looking down, then pulling back quickly. Rodriguez noticed, too, his hand moving toward his radio. 20 more seconds. The foyer light flicked on, visible through the small window beside the door. Footsteps inside, heavy on stairs. Someone was coming. The lock turned. Chain rattled. The door cracked open about 4 inches. Chain still engaged. Titus's face appeared in the gap. Hair disheveled. Bathrobe hastily thrown on. Squinting against the morning light. What the... He blinked, focused. It's 6 in the morning. What do you want? Mike held up his badge, professional and calm. Officer Donnelly, Chicago PD. Are you Titus Hale? Yeah, that's me. Titus's voice carried irritation, but underneath I heard something else. Nervousness. What's this about? We need to speak with you about an incident yesterday involving your wife. Titus's face changed. Brief panic. quickly masked. What incident? There's no incident. Everything's fine. Can you open the door completely, sir? Titus hesitated. His eyes moved past Mike to Rodriguez, then across the street to me. Recognition hit him like a physical blow. His face went pale. Grover? The chain slid off. Door opened wider. He was trying to process, trying to understand. What? Why are you in uniform? I stepped forward from my car, staying on the sidewalk, but making sure he could see me clearly. Where's Christine, Titus? She left. We had an argument. She left. His voice was shaking now. Whatever she told you, Rodriguez cut in. Where is your wife currently, Mr. Hale? I don't know. She just took off. Titus looked between the three of us, calculating, tried for charm. Officers, listen, this is just a misunderstanding between husband and wife. You know how it is. Arguments happen. We have a report of domestic violence. Mike's voice stayed level. That's why we're here. Domestic violence? Titus forced a laugh that came out hollow. Christine's being dramatic. She exaggerates things. Always has. Behind him, lighter footsteps on the stairs. A woman's voice, sleepy and confused. Titus? What's going on? Diane appeared over his shoulder, wearing one of Titus's shirts and nothing else. Bare legs, hair messed from sleep. She froze when she saw the uniforms. Rodriguez's eyebrows went up. And who is this, Mr. Hale? Titus turned white. We work together. I live down the street, Diane interrupted, then seemed to realize how ridiculous that sounded at 6 a.m. in his shirt. We were working late. Ma'am, I need you to stay where I can see you. Mike's tone left no room for argument. Diane tried to back toward the stairs, but Rodriguez moved slightly, blocking her path with his presence alone. She stayed put, arms crossing over her chest. Is this about Christine? Diane's voice carried a defensive edge. Because she's always causing drama. Always playing the victim. I felt my hands curl into fists. Mike noticed, stepping slightly between me and the doorway. Rodriguez's eyes narrowed. Playing the victim how, exactly? Diane's mouth opened, then closed. She'd realized her mistake, but kept going anyway. Maybe she wanted this. Maybe she drove him to... Diane! Titus snapped. Shut up! Drove him to what, ma'am? Rodriguez pressed. Diane went pale. I didn't mean we're just colleagues. This is all... Colleagues? I said quietly, my voice carrying across the space. At 6 a.m, in his house, wearing his shirt. She backed up another step, hitting the stairway railing. Mike took control. Mr. Hale, we have evidence of domestic violence that occurred at this address yesterday. We need to discuss this with you. Evidence? What evidence? Titus's voice pitched higher. She's lying. Whatever she said, she's making it up. Rodriguez pulled out his phone, holding it so Titus could see. Christine's face, battered and bruised. These were taken at 3:20 this morning. Photographs don't lie, Mr. Hale. Titus stared at the image. For a moment, something flickered across his face. Maybe regret, maybe just fear of consequences. It wasn't... She fell. She fell into your hands? I stepped closer, keeping my voice controlled, but letting the steel show through. She fell, and somehow your fingerprints ended up around her throat. Grover, you're using your connections. This is harassment. Titus's desperation was showing. I'll sue. You'll come with us to answer questions, Mike interrupted. That's what you'll do. I don't have to talk to you. No, sir, you don't. But we can do this easy or hard, your choice. Mike's hand rested on his belt, near the handcuffs. Titus Hale, you're being detained for questioning regarding domestic battery. This is insane. Titus tried to close the door. Rodriguez's foot blocked it. Mike continued, unruffled. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. I know my rights. I'm calling my lawyer. But Titus's voice cracked. He knew it was real now. That's your right, sir. But first, we'd like to look inside. Document the scene where the assault occurred. You need a warrant. We have probable cause based on victim testimony. You can consent to our entry, or we can secure the scene and obtain a warrant. Your choice. Titus looked trapped. His eyes darted between Mike, Rodriguez, and me. Behind him, Diane had gone silent, clutching the stairway railing. We can see evidence from here, Rodriguez added, pointing past Titus into the foyer. An overturned chair, a mark on the wall. Titus's shoulders slumped. Fine. Look around. You won't find anything. Thank you for your cooperation. Mike stepped inside. Rodriguez followed. I came last, crossing the threshold of the house where my daughter had lived, had tried to build a life, had finally been broken enough to escape. The foyer looked normal except for the overturned furniture, living room beyond it, hastily cleaned but not well. I could see the signs of rushed tidying, pillows askew, carpet vacuum marks still fresh. On the mantel a photo of Christine with the kids, Alex and Lily, smiling. She looked happy in the picture. That had been years ago. Rodriguez was already taking photos with his phone. Let's see the bedroom, Mike said. Why? Titus's voice was small now, because that's where the victim said the assault occurred. Titus led us upstairs, each step slower than the last. Diane pressed against the wall as we passed, her earlier defiance completely gone. She looked young suddenly, scared. We reached the second-floor landing. The bedroom door stood open. Even from the hallway, I could see the unmade bed, sheets twisted and falling off one side. Mike looked at me once, a question in his eyes. Ready? I nodded. We stepped inside. I stepped into the bedroom behind Mike and Rodriguez. The smell hit me first. Perfume, but not Christine's vanilla scent. Something sharper, cheaper, mixed with sweat and yesterday's fear. The bed was chaos. Sheets tangled, pillows on the floor, comforter half dragged onto the carpet. The dresser had items knocked over, cosmetics scattered, a lamp tilted at an angle, and on the floor, broken glass catching the morning light. I moved toward it without thinking. A picture frame, shattered, bent down, glass pieces tinkling as I picked it up. Our wedding photo, Christine in her white dress, Titus in his suit, both of them young and smiling. The glass had spider-webbed across their faces. Grover! Mike's hand on my shoulder. Not now. I set it down carefully and stood. Rodriguez was already methodically photographing everything, flash after flash, documenting the wreckage of my daughter's marriage. Fabric here! Rodriguez crouched by the dresser, using a pen to lift a piece of torn blue cloth. Christine's dress. I recognized it from the photos I'd taken hours ago. He bagged it carefully. Evidence! That doesn't prove anything. Titus stood in the doorway, arms crossed, trying to project confidence he didn't feel. Rodriguez ignored him, moving to the carpet edge. Blood here. He pulled out a swab kit. This'll need lab confirmation. She cut herself! Titus's voice pitched higher. She's clumsy, always hurting herself. I photographed her injuries, I said quietly, meeting his eyes. We know where that blood came from. Mike was examining the dresser corner. Torn fabric caught here. Matches what Rodriguez just bagged. He turned to Titus. This is where she hit when you pushed her? I didn't. We had an argument. Just an argument. About what? Rodriguez looked up from his evidence collection. She accused me of... Titus stopped, glanced toward the stairs where Diane waited. It doesn't matter. Accused you of what, Mr. Hale? Of having an affair, which is ridiculous. But his voice carried no conviction. Is it? I moved toward him. Diane's downstairs wearing your shirt at dawn. Mike opened a drawer, then another. In the third, he found what he was looking for. More torn fabric, hastily shoved inside. Attempting to conceal evidence, Mr. Hale? Titus went silent. I walked to the closet. Christine's clothes still hung there, neat and organized even though she was gone. Her jewelry box sat on the dresser, wedding ring inside, the real one she'd worn for 8 years. She'd left it behind. Left everything behind, except her life. From downstairs came the sound of a door opening. Rodriguez's head snapped up. She's moving! He bolted for the stairs. Ma'am, stop! I followed Mike and Titus down. Rodriguez had Diane by the back door, his hand on her arm, not rough, but firm. You need to stay, ma'am. I didn't do anything, Diane's voice cracked. Let me go. Nobody's arresting you, but you're a potential witness. We need a statement. Rodriguez guided her back to the living room. Mike, Titus, and I followed. Diane collapsed onto the couch, crying now. All her earlier arrogance dissolved. Were you here yesterday afternoon, Ms.? Mike had his notepad out. Rossi. Diane Rossi. She looked at Titus for help. He wouldn't meet her eyes. Were you here yesterday? She hesitated. Don't say anything, Titus warned. She's not under arrest, Mike said calmly. She can choose to cooperate. Makes everything easier. Diane broke. I didn't know she'd come home. Titus said she works late on Tuesdays. So you were here? We were Upstairs. Then she came home early and started screaming at us. Rodriguez moved closer. Did you witness Mr. Hale strike his wife? Diane's eyes went wide. I didn't see exactly. They were fighting. Yes or no, ma'am? Did you see him hit her? He pushed her. The words tumbled out. She fell into the dresser. I didn't think it was that bad. Diane, Titus shouted. Shut up, now. She wouldn't stop screaming, Diane continued, crying harder, calling us names, saying she'd destroy him. He just wanted her to stop. He grabbed her throat, and... That's enough, Mike said quietly. He turned to Titus. Mr. Hale, turn around and put your hands behind your back. What? No. Titus backed toward the stairs. You can't. You're under arrest for domestic battery. Mike pulled handcuffs from his belt. Rodriguez moved behind Titus, cutting off his retreat. Don't make this harder, sir, Rodriguez said. Titus's arms were pulled behind his back. The handcuffs clicked into place, metallic and final. The sound I'd heard 1,000 times in my career, but never like this. Never for someone who'd hurt my daughter. Mike continued the Miranda warning. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided for you. Do you understand these rights? I didn't mean to hurt her, Titus's voice broke. It was an accident. She fell. You're acknowledging you hurt her? Mike asked. Titus realized his mistake and went silent. I stepped forward, standing directly in front of him. 8 years, I said quietly. 8 years you fooled her, made her doubt herself, isolated her from friends, criticized everything about her, and when she finally found the courage to confront you, you put your hands on her. Grover, please. You strangled my daughter. You threw her out of her own home, and now you're going to face the consequences. Mike and Rodriguez led him toward the door. Neighbors were on their porches now, watching. The patrol car sat at the curb, back door open and waiting. Talk to Christine, Titus twisted in their grip, looking back at me. Tell her I'm sorry. I love her. I never meant. You'll see her in court, I said. They guided him into the back seat. The door closed. Through the window I could see his face, terrified now, all the arrogance stripped away. Rodriguez turned to Diane, still crying on the couch. Ms. Rossi, you'll need to come give a formal statement downtown. She nodded, hiccuping. Can I get dressed first? 5 minutes. I'll wait right here. Mike walked over to me, standing on the front lawn as the sun rose fully over the houses. Golden morning light, birds singing, the world continuing like nothing had happened. You good? Mike asked. Yeah. I took a breath. Thanks, Mike. Christine needs to file an official report, soon as possible. I'll bring her in today. We'll make this stick. I promise you, Grover. He's not walking away from this. I looked at the patrol car with Titus visible in the back seat. Then at the house behind us, scene of crime, now scene of justice. I know you will. Mike squeezed my shoulder once, then walked back to his car, started the engine. I watched the patrol car pull away, taking Titus toward booking, toward arraignment, toward everything he deserved. Rodriguez came out with Diane 5 minutes later, now dressed, still crying. They got in his car and followed Mike's patrol vehicle down the street. I stood alone on the lawn. The neighbors had gone inside. The street was quiet again. Normal morning in Hyde Park, except for one townhouse where everything had changed. I got in my Impala, started the engine. One last look at 547 South Kenwood. Then I pulled away, heading north toward home, toward Christine, toward telling her it was finally over. The arrest was just the beginning. The real work, making sure he paid fully, would come in court. But for now, this morning, justice had been served, and my daughter was safe. The courthouse steps seemed steeper than I remembered. 35 years I'd climbed them as a detective, bringing cases, testifying, watching justice unfold. Now I climbed them as a father, my daughter's hand trembling in mine. 6 weeks had passed since that August morning when I'd watched Titus being driven away in handcuffs. 6 weeks of police reports, prosecutor meetings, and Christine finding the courage to tell her story again and again. The children had moved back into the house, Titus barred by court order from coming within 500 feet. She'd repainted their bedroom, thrown out the sheets, started rebuilding. Today would make it official. I can do this, Christine whispered as we passed through security. Her voice carried more conviction than it had 6 weeks ago. I know you can. The Cook County Courthouse smelled the same. Floor polish, old wood, the faint mustiness of a building that had witnessed decades of human drama. Our footsteps echoed through marble hallways as we found courtroom 4B. Mike Donnelly waited outside in full-dress uniform, Rodriguez beside him. Both nodded as we approached. The prosecutor, a sharp-eyed woman named Sarah Chen, briefed Christine one final time. Tell the truth. Answer directly. Don't let the defense rattle you. Inside, the courtroom was traditional. Judge's bench elevated, witness stand to the side, gallery seating already filling with people. I guided Christine to the front row behind the prosecution table. Across the aisle, Titus sat with his lawyer, a slick-looking man in an expensive suit. Titus had lost weight. His face looked drawn, older. When he saw Christine, something flickered in his eyes. Regret, or just fear of consequences? Judge Elena Vargas entered, and we all stood. She was in her mid-50s, gray hair pulled back severely, eyes that had seen every excuse and lie. She settled into her chair and reviewed the case file. The state versus Titus Hale. Domestic battery. Are we ready to proceed? Both lawyers affirmed. My heart pounded as the prosecutor called her first witness. The state calls Christine Hale. Christine stood. Her legs shook, but she walked to the witness stand with her head up, took the oath with a steady voice, sat down and found my eyes. I nodded once. Mrs. Hale, the prosecutor began gently, please tell the court what happened on August 22nd of this year. Christine took a breath. I came home early from work. Around 3 in the afternoon. I wanted to surprise my husband, make his favorite dinner. Her voice was quiet but clear. When I got upstairs to our bedroom, I found him there with another woman, in our bed. She described it all, the confrontation, Diane's mockery, Titus's rage. The jury leaned forward listening. Every word painted the picture, betrayal, then violence. He pushed me hard. I fell backward, hit the dresser corner. She touched her side, where the bruise had been. Then when I tried to get up, he grabbed my throat. I couldn't breathe. His hands, she demonstrated fingers near her own neck. He squeezed until I thought I would pass out. Photos were displayed, her battered face at my kitchen table, taken just hours after. The jury's expressions hardened. One woman covered her mouth. Then came cross-examination. Titus's lawyer stood all false sympathy. Mrs. Hale, isn't it true you were shouting at my client? That you, in fact, provoked this situation? Christine's jaw tightened. I shouted because I found him in bed with another woman. That doesn't justify violence. But you admit the marriage had problems? That perhaps you weren't meeting his needs? Nothing I did or didn't do justifies what he did to me. Her voice strengthened. Nothing. The lawyer tried several more angles. Christine held firm. When she stepped down, I saw pride in her eyes. She'd told her truth and refused to let it be diminished. Mike took the stand next, professional in his testimony. When we arrived at the residence, the suspect was with another woman. The victim was not present. We observed evidence of a struggle in the bedroom, overturned items, torn fabric, blood on the carpet. Rodriguez followed, detailing the evidence collection. We found fabric from the victim's dress caught on the dresser corner, blood matching her type. Medical examination confirmed the injuries were consistent with assault and strangulation. Then Diane was called. She looked smaller somehow, nervous. Reluctantly, she confirmed the affair. Under pressure from the prosecutor, she admitted more. Yes, I was there. I saw him push her. She hit the furniture and fell. Her voice barely audible. I didn't think it was that bad at the time. Did you see Mr. Hale place his hands on his wife's throat? Long pause. Yes. Titus's lawyer tried damage control, but it was too late. The evidence was overwhelming. Physical proof. Multiple witnesses. Medical documentation. Christine's testimony. Clear and unwavering. Judge Vargas called a brief recess, and then returned. Mr. Hale, please stand. Titus rose, his face pale. Based on the evidence presented, this court finds you guilty of domestic battery. Her voice carried no emotion, just certainty. You are sentenced to 2 years probation, a restraining order, prohibiting contact with the victim within 500 feet, mandatory completion of an anger management program, and a fine of $5,000. Additionally, you are ordered to pay child support for your 2 minor children. Titus swayed slightly. But Your Honor, I'm finished. Next case. The gavel fell. That sound, wood striking wood, echoed through the courtroom like a final punctuation mark. Christine's shoulders shook. I put my arm around her as quiet tears streamed down her face. Not tears of pain this time. Relief. It's over, she whispered. Finally. Over. Justice won, sweetheart. We stood as people filed out. Mike approached, shook my hand. Good outcome, Grover. Thanks for everything, Mike. Walking down those courthouse steps, Christine leaned on me. The afternoon sun felt warmer than it had on the way in. At the bottom, she stopped and looked back up at the building. What now? She asked. I squeezed her shoulder. Now you get your life back, officially. The criminal case was closed, but there was still one more legal matter, ending the marriage completely. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday morning, 3 days before the final divorce signing. Titus's handwriting, shaky and desperate, across the front. Christine held it over the kitchen trash can for a full minute before letting it drop, unopened. The 14th letter, the 14th refusal. You don't have to read them, I told her after the first few. I know. She'd wiped her hands as if clearing away something contaminated. I'm done giving him anything, not even my time. The trial verdict in October had been swift. By early November, her lawyer had filed divorce papers. Titus hadn't contested. Couldn't really, not with a domestic violence conviction on record. The property division had been settled quickly. Christine got the house, primary custody of Alex and Lily, fair distribution of assets, and child support. Titus got supervised visitation rights and whatever possessions he could fit in his apartment. Today we'd sign the final papers. Christine dressed carefully that morning, a navy suit, professional and strong. She'd been staying at the house for the past month, sleeping in the guest room until she could face the master bedroom. Eventually, she'd repainted it entirely, bought new furniture, made it hers. Ready? I asked from the doorway. She looked at herself in the mirror one more time. Still wore the wedding ring, force of habit, she'd said. But as I watched, she slid it off her finger and set it on the dresser, left it there without looking back. More than ready. We drove to the lawyer's office in near North Side. Christine was quiet, staring out the window at the November gray. Finally, she spoke. I told the kids last week about the divorce being final today. How'd they take it? Alex understands more. He's 8. He knows Dad can't come home. Lily? She swallowed hard. Lily asked if it was her fault. If she'd been better behaved, would Daddy stay? My hands tightened on the steering wheel. What did you tell her? That adults make choices kids can't control. That her daddy loves her, but sometimes grown-ups can't live together. That she's perfect, exactly as she is. Christine wiped her eyes. They're both in counseling. Dr. Martinez says they're doing well, considering. And you? How are you doing? Better every day. Some mornings I wake up and forget for a second. Then I remember I'm free, and it's... She smiled slightly. It's like breathing fresh air after being underwater. The law office occupied the 15th floor of a steel and glass building, modern, impersonal, perfect for ending what had started with such hope. The conference room was all clean lines and leather chairs. Christine's lawyer, Margaret Ross, waited with a stack of documents. Everything's in order, Margaret said, professional warmth in her voice. Once both parties sign, the divorce is final. You'll officially revert to your maiden name, if you choose. I do. Christine didn't hesitate. Christine Sims, like it should have been. We waited. At 10 o'clock, the door opened. Titus's lawyer entered first, then Titus himself. He looked worse than he had in court. Suit wrinkled despite obvious effort, eyes hollow, hands shaking as he set down his briefcase. Security stood by the door, required by the restraining order. Titus saw Christine and something broke in his expression. Christine, please. Mr. Hale, Margaret's voice was steel. You're here to sign documents, nothing more. I just need to talk to her. Just a minute. He started around the table. Security stepped forward. Titus stopped, raised his hands. I won't hurt anyone. Then sit down and let's proceed. Margaret gestured to the chair across from us. Titus sat heavily, kept his eyes on Christine. I wrote you 14 times. Did you read any of them? No. Christine's voice was flat, cold. a tone I'd never heard her use before. I'm sorry. Every day I'm sorry. What I did, he ran his hands through his hair. I'll do anything, therapy, whatever you want. Just give me another chance. You had 7 years to change. Christine leaned forward slightly. 7 years I asked you to be kinder, to listen, to stop controlling me. You chose not to. Then you chose violence. It was one mistake, one terrible moment. No. She shook her head. It was the final moment in years of mistakes. You diminished me, isolated me, cheated on me. Then you put your hands on my throat. Her voice never rose, but every word landed like a hammer. That's who you are, and I'm done pretending otherwise. Titus turned desperate. What about Alex and Lily? You're taking my children from me? You lost them yourself. When they're older, they'll decide if they want you in their lives. Right now, I'm protecting them from learning that love looks like what you did to me. His face crumpled. For a moment, I almost felt something like pity. Almost. Mr. Hale, his lawyer interrupted, and we need to sign these documents. Margaret slid the papers across the table. Christine signed first, her hand steady. No hesitation. No second thoughts. Just clean, clear signatures on page after page. Titus picked up the pen, stared at the papers like they were a death sentence. In a way, they were. The death of everything he'd taken for granted. Sign them, I said quietly. It's over. He signed. Each stroke looked painful. When the last page was complete, Margaret collected everything efficiently. That concludes the proceedings. Mrs. Sims, you're now legally divorced. The restraining order remains in effect. Mr. Hale, you'll be contacted regarding supervised visitation arrangements. We stood. Christine picked up her purse, turned toward the door. Titus called after her. Christine, wait, please. She didn't even pause. Just walked out, her back straight, her step certain. I followed, leaving him sitting at that table with his shattered life. Outside the building, the November air hit sharp and cold. Christine breathed it in deeply, tilted her face toward the gray sky. I'm free, she said wonderingly. Actually, truly free. You are. We found a small cafe around the corner, warm and smelling of coffee, ordered cappuccinos and split a piece of chocolate cake, sat by the window watching the city move past. Christine raised her cup. To new beginnings. To your strength, I corrected, touching my cup to hers. I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. Her smile was genuine. The first real smile I'd seen in years. Thank you, Dad, for everything. If you hadn't... She stopped, shook her head. I don't know where I'd be. You're stronger than you think. You walked through fire. You'll walk into something better now. She looked at her bare ring finger, turning her hand in the light. 8 years, gone. Part of me is sad, not for him, but for the time I lost, the woman I could have been. You're becoming her now. I am, aren't I? She laughed softly. I want to focus on the kids, on my career, maybe get my master's degree, and someday when I'm ready, maybe I'll date again. But not yet, not for a while. Take all the time you need. We finished our coffee as November darkness fell early outside the windows. When we finally left, walking into the cold evening, Christine linked her arm through mine. That was November, she said thoughtfully. What do you think the rest will bring? Whatever you want it to. Winter came and went. Spring arrived with its promise of renewal. And before I knew it, summer returned. 1 year since that terrible night that had changed everything. Christine spread the blanket on the grass with practiced ease. A year ago, her hands would have trembled. Today, they moved with confidence, smoothing corners, arranging the picnic basket just so. The transformation wasn't just in her hands. It was in everything. The way she stood, shoulders back instead of hunched. The way she smiled, genuine instead of forced. The way she existed in the world, taking up space without apology. Over here, Dad, she waved from the spot she'd chosen in Lincoln Park, near enough to the lake to see the water sparkling, far enough from the crowd to feel private. August 23rd, exactly 1 year and 1 day since she'd appeared at my door, broken and bleeding. She'd chosen this date deliberately, wanted to mark it, reclaim it, transform it from an anniversary of trauma into a celebration of survival. I walked over with the cooler, Alex and Lily racing ahead of me with a soccer ball. Their laughter filled the air, free, uninhibited, the sound of children who felt safe. They'd grown in the past year. Alex taller, more serious, but also more relaxed. Lily still tiny, but no longer jumping at sudden noises. Perfect day for this, I said, setting down the cooler. Christine looked up at the cloudless blue sky, the sunshine making everything golden. Perfect day for everything. She looked healthy. Really healthy. The gauntness had filled out, color had returned to her cheeks, and her eyes, those eyes that had been so haunted, now sparkled with actual joy. She wore a simple sundress, hair loose around her shoulders. Sandals kicked off already. Relaxed in a way I hadn't seen since she was a teenager. We settled on the blanket as the kids played nearby, close enough to watch but giving us space. Christine unpacked sandwiches, fruit, cookies she'd baked herself that morning. Domestic normalcy that had once been poisoned, now reclaimed. "Can you believe it's been a year?" she asked, handing me a sandwich. "Some days it feels like yesterday. Other days it feels like a lifetime ago." "Both," she bit into an apple, thoughtful. "A year ago I couldn't imagine ever feeling safe again, let alone happy. But here we are." "Tell me how you're really doing," I said. Not the polite version, the truth. She considered this, watching Alex show Lily how to kick the ball properly. "I'm good. Actually good, not just saying it. The therapy helped. Still going. Probably always will. Work promoted me to department head in June. More money, more respect, more challenge. The house is mine now, really mine. I redecorated everything, made it ours." She gestured at the kids. "They're thriving. Dr. Martinez says they're remarkably resilient. And Titus?" Her expression didn't even flicker. "He sees them twice a month. Supervised visits at a facility. They're cordial with him, which is all I hope for. He completes his anger management classes, pays child support on time. That's all I need to know about him. No contact otherwise? None. The restraining order ends next year, but I doubt he'll approach. He knows there's nothing left there." She pulled her knees up, wrapped her arms around them. "The weird thing? I don't hate him. I don't feel anything. He's just someone I used to know, someone who hurt me, but not someone who defines me anymore." Pride swelled in my chest. "That's real healing right there. There's something else." She smiled, a little shy. "I met someone. His name is David. He teaches history at the school. We've been seeing each other for 3 months now." "Tell me about him." "He's kind, patient, funny in this quiet way. Good with the kids. Doesn't try too hard. Just genuinely enjoys them." Her smile widened. "When I told him about everything, about Titus and the trial, he just listened. Didn't try to fix it or make it better. Just listened. Then said, 'You're incredibly brave.' Not 'I'm sorry' or 'poor you.' Just acknowledged my strength. Sounds like a good man. He is. I'm taking it slow. Really slow. But it feels right. Healthy. No red flags, no gut warnings I'm ignoring. For the first time, I'm listening to my instincts. That's all I ever wanted," I said, my voice rough, "for you to trust yourself." Alex ran over, breathless and grinning. "Grandpa, watch this." He kicked the ball high, and it soared in a perfect arc. "See? Coach says I'm getting good." "That's fantastic, champ," I called back. Lily came running after, not to be outdone. "I can do it too. Watch me." Her kick went sideways, but her face shone with pride anyway. Christine watched them with such love it transformed her whole face. They're just kids again. Not scared kids, not traumatized kids. Just kids. Playing and laughing and being silly. That's what I fought for. That's what you helped me win. You did the fighting, sweetheart. I just backed you up. We did it together. She leaned her head on my shoulder. Thank you, Dad, for believing me, for protecting me, for showing me what strength looks like. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the children play, watching boats glide across the lake, watching the world continue in its ordinary, beautiful way. A couple walked past holding hands. A dog chased a frisbee. Someone's music played faintly in the distance. Normal life all around us. You know what I realized last week? Christine said eventually. I was grocery shopping, and I saw this couple arguing. She was tense, he was aggressive, and I watched her shrink into herself. And I thought, that used to be me, but it's not anymore. I'm not that woman anymore. No, you're not. I'm stronger, smarter. I won't ever let anyone treat me that way again. She lifted her head, looked at me directly. And if someone tries, I know I have you. But more than that, I know I have myself. The afternoon wore on. We played with the kids, throwing the ball back and forth, all of us running around like fools until we collapsed, laughing on the blanket. Had dinner as the sun started to lower, sandwiches and fruit and those homemade cookies that tasted like new traditions. Watched the sky turn from blue to gold to pink. As we packed up to leave, Lily tugged on my sleeve. "Grandpa, can we do this again next year?" "Absolutely, sweetheart." "Every year?" Alex added. "Like a tradition?" Christine ruffled his hair. "Every year. Our family picnic day." We walked to the car as the streetlights flickered on, the kids tired and happy, Christine peaceful beside me. At the car, she paused and looked back at the park, at the place where we'd spent this perfect day. "1 year ago, I knocked on your door thinking my life was over," she said quietly. "Turns out it was just beginning." I pulled her into a hug. "You've come so far, sweetheart." We both have. Driving home through the summer evening, the kids chattering in the back seat about ice cream and bedtime stories, Christine hummed along to the radio. Just a small sound, almost unconscious, but it meant everything. A year ago, there'd been no music in her. Now there was. We pulled into her driveway, the house that was truly hers now, painted in colors she'd chosen, filled with furniture she'd picked. A home, not a prison. The porch light was on, welcoming. Through the window, I could see the living room she'd decorated with family photos. Her and the kids, her and me, the kids alone. No pictures of Titus. He'd been edited out of the story, removed from the gallery of what mattered. "Do you want to come in?" she asked. "David's coming by later, but we have time for tea." Another night. "You've got plans?" She smiled at that, actually excited about someone coming over. "Okay. Love you, Dad." "Love you too, sweetheart. Always." I watched her gather the kids and the picnic supplies, heard them toward the front door, laughing at something Lily said. Before going inside, she turned and waved. I waved back. A year ago, she'd knocked on my door broken. Today, she was whole. 35 years I'd worked as a cop, hundreds of cases, thousands of victims. But this one, my own daughter, mattered most, and I'd gotten it right. The sun set over Chicago, painting everything in shades of gold and promise. Tomorrow would come, and the day after that, and all the days beyond. And she would face them strong, free, and surrounded by love. That was all I'd ever wanted. If you liked this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.